Whatever you have in your mason jar tastes better if you put a little bonnet on it. So here is the easiest tutorial to make your mason jar a cute little bonnet. The first step is to make your pattern. To do this, you'll trace your mason jar or your bowl, whatever you're doing, a loose outline of the opening. The second step is to add your seam allowance and your elastic space. My elastic was 1 inch, so I did 2.5 inches. So that gives me a 1/2 inch seam allowance and 1 inch for my elastic. So general rule of thumb, double and add 1/2 inch for your elastic. Once you know how much space you need for your elastic, just make little ticks all the way around the paper of, example, 2.5 inches, and then cut that out. That is how I got this template. I ran out of space, obviously, so I just guesstimate that when I cut my fabric. Then figure out how much elastic you need. Put it snugly around the top of your mason jar. I figured out mine is 10.5 inches for a comfortable fit. The next step is to cut your fabric. So either lay your pattern on top and cut it directly if you have one of these fun pizza cutter fabric things. Otherwise, trace it and then cut with scissors. You're gonna need 2 pieces. I recommend folding it in half and then just cutting them both at once if you can. I recently discovered clips instead of pins, and my life has forever been changed. Once you have your fabric secured, you're gonna go ahead and sew around the outside. This is where that 1/2 inch seam allowance comes in. If you don't give yourself that, you're gonna cut into the elastic space, and then it's gonna be really hard to get it through the fabric. And then leave about 1 inch or so that is not sewn together so you can flip it through, because you don't want it to look like this at the end. Then if you have pinking shears, the like zigzaggy scissors, go ahead and cut around the outside. Otherwise, just put little slits like this into your fabric. This will help it when you flip it not be so chunky, bulky on the outside, if that makes sense. Then go ahead and turn your fabric right side out. So it looks kind of like a whoopee cushion. And then from here, you're going to sew the space where the elastic is going to go. So you want to go about like 1 inch, 1.5 inches down, and then sew that inside circle. This one you can sew all the way shut. You don't need this space. Can you see that circle? Then you want to measure and cut your elastic. I said 10.5 inches for this one. Cut. You don't need a safety pin for this, but it is a lot easier if you do. Stab that through. And then you're going to fish this through the outside. Once you get back to the end, take off your safety pin. The hardest part is making sure that they stay like this and they don't twist. When they twist, the finished look does not look as clean. I thought I was recording this part, but I wasn't. The last 2 steps are to sew your elastic together and close this hole. So to sew the elastic, you're going to just line it up like this, pinch it under your foot, and then just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to make sure it's tight, because if this snaps, your bonnet won't work anymore. There's going to be no elastic stretch with it. Then you'll tuck this part in, put that under your foot, and close your hole. And just give her a little shimmy shake. And there is your mason jar bonnet.